Hey everyone, so today we're going back to my roots. We are going to be exploring Library at Celaeno, a alternative game map for Cthulhu Wars. Hey y'all, so if you don't know what Library at Celaeno is, it is an alternate game map which replaces Earth in Cthulhu Wars. So same game for the most part, there's just some different meta rules which greatly affect how the game plays, which factions are good. This is not a neutral map in my opinion. So definitely some factions benefit more by the changes than others. This is for people who are either bored with Earth, just want to explore something different, just want to explore more of the lore. I don't know. I mean, I like more different new rules, so it's good for someone like me. Okay, so first of all, the library at Celaeno is a library, which means it's not a globe. So it is 2 levels, level 1, level 2. Just like Earth, you can flip the map for different numbers of players. I have it set up for 5 and 5, which is full 5 players. 5 and 3 is 4 players, 3 and 3 is 3 players. If you have more than 5 players, you're gonna want the 6, 7, and 8 player board. Okay, so you have this roughly square building that is the library, level 1, level 2. In order to travel between levels, you're gonna have to take the stairs or the gates. So at various points, there are stairs. These stairs have a matching letter. So F connects to F, D connects to D, E connects to E, and so on. You have starting symbols just like Earth. You have a couple things to look out for, like Windwalker does not start at the North and South Pole. It's somewhat random. For Cthulhu, instead of having oceans, you have these submerged levels called seas. So Gloomloft is a sea, Cursed Hall is a sea, the Oubliette is a sea, Porphyr Hall is a sea, and so on. So any ability that reference an ocean, that affects squares that say sea. You have 2 neutral units. So the neutral units are the librarian and the caretaker. The neutral units, they will do things for you, but they do not do things they don't fight for you, and you can't fight for them. They exist in the library, they do things, they don't start on the board, and in order to manipulate them, you have to use your silence tokens. Everyone gets a silence token at the beginning of each turn. The silence tokens, if you don't spend them, you lose them, and you get a new one at the beginning of each doom phase. I don't exactly understand why you lose them and then get them back, but the important bit is it's a use it or lose it mechanic. You want to try to use your silence tokens if possible. You also have these little hint cards to help remind you which actions you can do each turn. And you also have, as the other mechanic, is the gateways. So the gateways allow you to treat any other square with a gateway as adjacent. So if you wanted to move from the Black Goat starting on the fountain, if you wanted to move to the Blue Hall, they're adjacent. So Crawling Chaos and Black Goat are right next to each other, just primed, ready to mess with each other. So gates are interesting, but they prove to be bad for certain factions, meaning that they're a little unfair. All right, the big thing, now none of these things really greatly are gonna change the game that much. What's really important is the tomes. This is the library. The tomes are the core of this map. There's 4 tomes. They start off in 4 different rooms, named accordingly. So Barrier of Nocteeth, Larvae of the Outer Gods, Yer in the Nigthir, guardian under the lake, and when the game starts, they each spawn a gate. If they lose the gate later on, then they do not regain their gate. But as long as you have a gate there, then you can interact with it. Effectively, when you take control of a gate in one of the library rooms, the four tome rooms, then you gain control of the accordingly tome if it's available. So Black Goat, they just took the Yer and the Ningher. They take the tome. Then someone else like Cthulhu bumps them off somehow, turns them into a fish, whatever. And now the Yer and the Ningher is now considered overdue. And that's the primary mechanic of interacting with the librarian, is you bump somebody out of a gate that they got a book from. They're not allowed to return the book voluntarily until the librarian comes and brings the agony. So once Cthulhu bumped Black Goat out of a room with a tome, that tome is overdue. And now any player really can spend a silence token, which they get one of per turn, and summon the librarian. You can put the librarian anywhere, but it can only target units with a controller who has an overdue book. So you put the custodian there and you roll the agony die. It's a 1. That's what I roll in real games, just ones, nonstop. Not in combat, but things like this, ones, always. So I rolled a 1 on the agony roll. If I had not moved, then the agony die would be increased by 1. So I would have gotten a 2, but in this case, I just got 1. And Black Goat player has 3 choices to fulfill the agony. They can eliminate 1 unit per agony, they can sacrifice a doom point per agony, or they can give up an overdue tome, putting it back where it belongs, which of course will give it to a new player if on their turn, if they choose to gain control of that gate again. So that is the 3 things you can do. You can do any combination, so you don't have to eliminate, like if I roll a 3, you don't have to eliminate 3 units. You can eliminate 1 doom point, 2 units, and keep the tome. So nobody can force you to get rid of the tome unless you run out of all your units in that area. And also you have lost all of your doom points. So there you go. What do the tomes do? So what the tomes do is, first of all, they all have like a reset mechanic. So they have their ability that I'm going to describe. It'll go off and then you can't use that ability again until the next round. However, you can reset it so you can use it more than once per turn. The only way that you can reset, the only way that you can reset these is by doing one of the 3, which is you can release a captured cultist back to its owner's pool, you can discard an elder sign, or you can discard a silence token. So that works for 3 of the 4 tomes. One of the tomes, Barrier of Noctith, it's kind of the opposite. The Barrier of Noctith says no other player may declare battle against you unless they do those 3 things. Release a captured cultist back to its owner's pool, discard an elder sign, or discard a silence token. So Barrier is like a passive inverse of the other 3. Okay, what do the 3 do? Yer and the Ningher, this is my personal favorite for most factions. If any enemy faction has more doom than you, then you can either put a monster at your controlled gate for no additional cost, or you can gain 2 power. So when you don't have that much power, when you don't have that much doom, which is going to be good for anybody with lots of elder signs, then you can activate Yer and the Ningher for 1 power, get a free monster, or get 2 power. I think it's pretty nice. The Guardian under the lake, you choose an archway and you move all of the units to any other archway. So if Cthulhu had the Guardian under the lake, he could just say, you know what, Black Goat, all of your units now have been moved to anywhere, Scorched Chamber, whatever. So that's pretty cool. The larvae of the outer gods. Gain 1 elder sign if any active faction has more power than you. Flip this card face down. All right, so that's going to be useful for people who don't have a lot of power. I don't like that for, say, like Black Goat, because Black Goat, I typically like summon my 0-cost ghouls, and I'm trying to keep power until the end of the round. So it is good for factions like Crawling Chaos that often run out of their power quick, especially units who have more expensive units like Sleeper or Windwalker. All right. Though, yeah, because Windwalker, you're going to try to get down to the bottom as quick as you can. All right, Barrier of Noctith, of course, no other player may declare battle against you. Those are the 4 tomes. These tomes can greatly affect the game. You typically cannot ignore somebody having Ur and then Her. Really, any of them, right? Larvae of the Outer Gods, you can't ignore them. If they're able to trigger it, especially if they're able to trigger it multiple times, you must do something. And typically that's taking the gate, and then once you have the gate, then summoning the librarian. Now, I haven't talked about the custodian. Custodian's very simple. He just cleans up the place. You call him in when there's a mess, somebody dropped a jar of pickles, whatever. You spend a silence token, you put the custodian somewhere, he's going to clean up the mess. You roll the agony die, I rolled a 3. Same as librarian. If he had not moved, then you're going to get to increase that by 1. But then you just move as many units as you have rolled, including your own or whoever's. If you rolled too high, you just move them all to the oubliette. So that's just the garbage pit. You just move all those units into the garbage oubliette, and there you go. That's what the custodian does. If you summon the custodian to move somebody else's on their turn, chances are they're going to summon the custodian and they're going to move a bunch of other units. Boom. Custodians is super cool because he's free, effectively, silence token, and he can move things. I'll go over that in a moment. So who goes well with this map? Black Goat. I really like Barrier of Noctith with Black Goat because as you expand to try to get your spell books, you're making your units vulnerable. But in this case, Barrier of Noctith is going to make it so that it's expensive for people to attack you. And that can allow you to steal some early spell books that otherwise you couldn't do. Crawling Chaos is not a faction that I normally like to use on this map. It can be useful to get the larvae of the outer gods because often I don't have that much power. Obviously the Ur and the Her is pretty nice. It could be useful guarding under the gate to try to move units close to Nyarlathotep because you're always trying to separate units. You're trying to prey on the weak. But for the most part, travel is so easy on this map that your flight ability is just not that useful. And without flight, I just feel like the faction is at a disadvantage. All right, Great Cthulhu. So what I like doing with Great Cthulhu is I like abusing the custodian or the guardian of the lake. And so what I do is I submerge Cthulhu with all my units. Once I have them submerged, then what I do is I either use custodian to move units to the oubliette, which is a C, or I use Guardian of the Lake. And it depends on how many units. If it's between 2 and 3 units, then the custodian works great and he's free. Guardian of the Lake costs 1, but it's all of the units. Then I can take my submerged army, I can pop out, I can attack, and then I can submerge again, which typically is a Cthulhu weakness because normally you want to attack dry land, but you can't. Well, you can, but then it costs you a bunch of power to move your armies back out. Opener of the Way. Opener of the Way is madness on this map. It's really unbalanced. It's unbalanced enough that if you play this map a lot, you might want to say nobody can play Opener of the Way. This is the problem I have with Opener of the Way. Though it is, I mean, it's a nice problem for Opener of the Way to have. When you start the game, if it's a 5-person game, that's 5 gates. Then 4 gates automatically form. That's 9 gates. You immediately got a spell book when you started the game, and you're almost at 12 spell books. With 5 factions, at least 3 more gates are going to be made right away, I would think. It's the only thing is that maybe instead of making gates, people are going to take the gates with the tomes, but usually some extra gates will be made and you'll get that 12 spellbook gateway. It's going to be crazy. Also, if you can get Ur in the Nunghur, then you can start popping out your spawns of Yog-Sothoth, which normally cost 4, but in this case will only cost 1. Pretty crazy. I know a lot of Opener of the Way really like that mutation mechanic where you evolve into a bigger thing. I don't personally like it that much. It's a nice thing to have when it goes off, but I don't like planning for it because often you choose not to take advantage of things that you might have. And a lot of times Yog-Sothoth players will struggle to get their spawns out, and thus they won't be able to get their great old one out. All right, Sleeper. I like Sleeper with Ur and the Nunghur because you can start getting formless spawns out in the beginning and they're expensive. You also can make it easier on yourself to get out Wizards and Serpentmen. It's okay. It's not great in my opinion. So I probably wouldn't choose Sleeper personally. Cho-Cho. So I don't like Cho-Cho on this map. Typically with Cho-Cho, I like to isolate myself in North America, far away from anybody else, and I hope people will leave me alone. And of course they won't leave me alone, but in the library at Celaeno, it's worse. People will not leave you alone. They'll be popping out of gates. They're going to be coming up the stairs. It's just really hard for me to defend myself adequately. The other thing is that typically, if people leave Cho-Cho alone, then Cho-Cho wins. That forces everyone else to interact with Cho-Cho. But in this case, if you ignore people with Larvae of the Outer Gods, then they might win. And that doesn't work for me. Like as a Cho-Cho player, because the Cho-Cho player don't have a lot of active abilities. So yeah, not a fan of Cho-Cho. Yellow Sign. Yellow Sign is pretty great. You can get Barrier of Noctith, which can help you, kind of sneak around. It's easy for you to get to all of your symbols. Look at this. Black Hall, Red Hall, Blue Hall, Scorched Chamber, Chamber of Apkalu, Chamber of Apkalu. It is easy to find your symbols. It's easy to go through stairs and back ways and desecrate and everything. I mean, it's pretty ideal for Yellow Sign. Windwalker. So what I like, now this is not honestly as good as Yog-Sothoth Opener of the Way, but with Windwalker, what you do is step 1, do not choose to put your gate in the oubliette. Okay, that's step 1. Choose to be the other place. In this case, Lake of Hull Overlook. Then the first thing you do is you spend your silence token, summon the custodian, roll your thing, 3. That's going to push 3 of your own units into the oubliette. Then summon a gate. Boom. There's now a gate at both Windwalker faction symbols, and you've got your first spell book, one of the hardest spell books, and there you go. I mean, you are set to win. I know a lot of Windwalker players struggle to get to the North Pole or South Pole from the other side. Not here, not on this map. Just like Yellow Sign, you just get it almost by default. Opener of the Way gets it by default. And I think that ultimately, that's why a lot of people that I've talked to do not like this map, because it does seem to give an advantage to 3 factions, and it does, like any other advantage for any other faction, really are matched because the tomes are accessible to anybody. So it doesn't really, like, sure, Black Goat will enjoy Barrier, but everybody will enjoy Barrier. It's just nobody else needs Barrier. So I don't know. I like the map. I think it's cool. I think it's different. I'm all for like playing it, and I encourage people to try to play it, find a copy, whatever. I know it's hard to find a copy because it's on slot 2, I think. But there you go. So I'm going to end the video there. Any more faction like combos, I'd love it if you post it down below. I'll comment or I'll interact with you. I will, some of them I'll give them a try and see if they work for me. And with that, I'm gonna end this video. I would like to ask one question. If at any point you thought in your head of the DuckTales theme song, give this video a like. That's what I'm asking. Saw the shirt, the whole video, and subconsciously or consciously, you thought about DuckTales. Life is like a hurricane. This counts right here. If you just thought about the song when I said those words and it's in your head, then, click that like button. There's multiple reasons why you want to click that like button. 1, because DuckTales is cool. 2, Cthulhu Wars is cool. And this video has both. 3, I'm giving a copy of Cthulhu Wars out if I hit 1,000 subscribers, which means even if you're watching this video on Twitter, Facebook, the website, whatever, go over or send somebody over to the YouTube side, click subscribe. The sooner I get 1,000, the sooner I'll be giving out a copy, maybe in time for Christmas. And in fact, if I hit 1,000 subscribers before December, then I will give out 2 copies of Cthulhu Wars. So that basically just doubled the chances of everyone. And we're only like 60 subscribers away. So that's pretty easy. And I'd like to make somebody's Christmas. And I'd love to make somebody's 2 Christmas, two people's Christmases. Yeah, I'm not gonna make one person's 2 Christmases. Well, maybe I am next year. Who knows what the contest is gonna be? But appreciate you guys. I'd love to see your comments. Love the questions. I love fixes and corrections. Crushes my soul sometimes, but I want to know. And that's the theme of Richard, is that I want to know, and I want to share, and I want to have discussions, and I want to collaborate with people. So with that, I'm gonna end it. Bye guys.